Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Firehouse Table Talk, coming to you from the Sober Life Studios, and of course, brought to you by One Brother, One Sister. We'll talk more about One Brother, One Sister at the end, but keep in mind, if there's somebody you want to help out, this is a good way to get help to our first responders out there by supporting One Brother, One Sister. Also, before we start, please remember to like this show, subscribe to the channel, and leave comments. Those comments are really important to us, and we'd like to hear from you. We have a great guest today. This is Carolyn Acosta. And Carolyn, you are the founder of, and I'm going to give First Alarm Foundation, correct?
That's correct.
Then that's terrific. We're going to tell your story and talk about all the things you do. But first of all, just what is First Alarm Foundation?
Well, First Alarm Foundation is a foundation that I started to really break that stigma and provide more resources for our first responders who may be going through some kind of mental health crisis. This is something that I found there is, but there's not a lot of. And breaking that stigma within that culture has been quite hard, I think, and for them to be able to open up and say, I need help. So I think First Alarm Foundation is a resource that they can use other than their department resources.
Right, because that's, of course, there's the occupational stigma that if you say something, you're going to lose your seat on the truck or there's going to be something that's going to happen. And we'll talk more in detail about that. But let's talk about your story, because you didn't just fall into this. Mm-hmm. There were some things that happened in your life that drove you to actually represent this cause.
Yes. So I started First Alarm Foundation in August, shortly after my husband, who was a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue Lieutenant on air rescue, lost his battle with PTSD on July 12th of 2024. I started the foundation in August. He was unfortunately battling with this for many years, diagnosed in 2015. I was not aware of this until shortly after his passing, that he had PTSD. Again, the same thing, there are protectors and there are, they are the ones who are supposed to take care of us. And I think that they fear of letting us down as, your spouse or your family. And also, voicing that they're having some kind of mental health crisis is seen as a weakness.
Right. Now, you said you weren't aware until afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about that for a minute, because I think a lot of people think, well, I'll know if there's something wrong.
Right.
PTSD is a very serious illness. It's a very serious problem, but it's not always visible, is it?
No, it's not. It's not visible directly, but looking back now and understanding what some signs are, mm-hmm. I can tell you that if you start disconnecting from your family, your typical, he was a very organized person, always kept things tidy. Towards the end, I noticed that he just didn't give a crap. He didn't care if things were organized anymore. Things as cleaning his truck, taking off the Christmas lights off the house, things like that were definitely signs. And also not connecting with family anymore and friends. There was definitely a disconnect there.
Well, as a wife and obviously friend and a mother and all of that, and in your household, this is going on. Did you have a different idea about what was happening, or did something come that you just thought maybe he was just off? What were you thinking?
So I took it personally, and I thought maybe, he's disconnecting from me, and maybe we're having issues. Maybe maybe he found somebody else. There's a million things that I took it like it was me. And I think that's a very normal reaction, because you see somebody who just doesn't want to engage with your family anymore, or engage in activities that he would usually be happy about. I was maybe he's just not interested anymore. So, I did speak to him about that, and he was like, no, it's not that. I'm just not feeling it right now. But I personally took it as something maybe I was doing.
And that's very common. We see that with parents all the time, mm-hmm. with children with either mental health disorders or addictions or any kind of issues. Even with learning disabilities, sometimes parents take it on and say, what do we do wrong? And why, what do I have to change? And it's not about that. I assume this was shocking to you when you mm-hmm. started to see the scope of what was really going on, mm-hmm. unfortunately, after the fact, as most people do. But how were you shocked? Were you, tell me what you were feeling.
So when I noticed a change was sometime in March. I noticed that he was acting a little more anxious, And I asked him, and I knew he had been to therapy before, and I knew he had been on antidepressants because I figured, and this was because I thought it was just something that, we all go through ups and downs in life, and sometimes
Yeah.
you do need to be put on medication, and that's perfectly fine. But I noticed again the anxiety coming back in March. And I know there was an issue that there was a guy coming back to work that he felt unsafe on the aircraft. So that kind of triggered something. I noticed him not sleeping anymore, getting up in the middle of the night, almost like night terrors. And towards, I would say, the last 3 weeks, he told me he had PTSD. He was diagnosed with that. He didn't tell me he was diagnosed in 2015, but he told me he was diagnosed with it. So I told him, I was like, babe, it's not a big deal. This too shall pass. Go to therapy. Everything will be fine. Again, I'm looking at this is just a little bump in the road. It's not a big deal. I didn't want to feed too much into it.
Right.
And he was just very crawling out of his skin.
Right.
I did worry, but he was telling me he was going to therapy. He was on an antidepressant, and I really never in a million years would have thought he would have done what he did.
Yeah.
So that was definitely something that was totally unexpected. The depression and I could see that, but never him taking his life, because he was just such a present person, always with us. He would always tell us, enjoy the moment. This isn't always forever. Don't sweat the big stuff. Don't sweat the little things. This isn't that big. He was very good, and he was our rock. He really loved us so much and would tell us we're his world. So for somebody to say that and then the next day take their life, it just didn't make sense.
And we don't always see, because there is such a strong outer shell on most people, let alone first responders and firefighters, air rescue, all those people. There's such an outer shell of I got to protect and I've got to represent. And a part of that fear is because of the stigma you talked about. Now, there's a shift in your life now, because I want to talk about what you did with this. There's a shift. What were you doing before he passed? What kind of work did you do, and what were you involved in?
So I work at a school. I'm the registrar at a Catholic school that my son has been since pre-K 3.
Okay.
So I really I dedicated my life to take care of my son and like a housewife, really. I mean, I worked, but it's not crazy, stressed out or anything like that. It was honestly to be with my son, because he's at the same school that I work at. So my life was just a regular life.
Wow. Wow. And then it's upended?
And then it's up. Yeah. Everything was uprooted on July 12th.
No, and what shocks me is you said in July, this event happened and you lost him. And by August, you had already figured out what you need to do with that.
Yes.
How did that happen so quickly for you? Because a lot of people, it takes a long time to digest and figure out what to do.
I really felt a calling when this all happened. Obviously, the first few weeks, you're just like, what am I going to do? I can't believe this happened to us. Suicide was just, that word alone is I can't even imagine this. But I felt that just by the outpour of love that we got after Alex passed, and how the people on social media would write us messages, how he touched their lives at work, and just in life in general. And he was also an EMS instructor at Miami-Dade College. And they ended up having his services at the arena. And it was so big. So I knew that he touched so many lives. I'm like, if I don't do something with this, then, somebody else is going to pass. I was like, obviously no one expected Alex Acosta to take his life. I was like, that's it. People, you can't tell. Mental health, you can't look at somebody and say, oh, you have something going on with you in your head. You can't. So I'm like, this is this hidden secret that they're keeping, and nobody's talking about it. And we need to start a community. We need to bring this out to light. Absolutely.
I love, there's a statement that you gave me earlier. You wrote it out. I made a promise that his story wouldn't end in silence. And I love that. And it shouldn't. There was enough silence that leads people to that point. So we need to get louder. Now you mentioned stigma, and that's a big piece of this, because how big a role are you seeing this play in people's problems right now?
Mhm.
Now that you're out there and working with so many people, what is stigma like?
Well, it's big, especially in this culture. Our first responders, we're the ones, we call them to come and help us.
Yeah.
So for them to ask for help, it's something that they just not taught to do. That you just don't do that, right? That's not like
Yeah.
in their DNA. It's not programmed. Like we don't do that. So I think that's huge. We're all human. What they're being exposed to on a day-to-day basis is not something normal that a normal brain can process. You see it, it's life and death, and that's not something that you should be able to just like, okay, deal with it and move on to the next, because it's just not. I think that we need to work a little bit on communicating and getting those right resources out there for them to be able to feel and make a community so they feel it's okay to ask for help. And you know what? Like that call did affect me.
With First Alarm Foundation, you're there to help them and to get access resources and get them the help they need. Is this being supported by the fire departments and the other first responders out there? Are you seeing them support your mission?
I am actually, surprisingly enough, I am. We get a lot of thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for having us on your podcast, or have, this out there for us to go if we need these services. The actual Miami-Dade Fire Rescue also put us in one of the memos. Like if you need help after Captain Bill Gustin took his life, I would say it was like 8 months after my husband did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like the GOAT of Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. He took his life, and they actually put out in a memo, like, please, if you don't want to come to us, please go to First Alarm, or get the help you need wherever you need to get. But yes, I've definitely seen support.
That's fantastic. And, the old days of first responders, whether it's police or fire or any of those, was, you laugh off your problems while you're at work, and then on the way home, you stop and you have a few beers until the problems go away, then you go home.
Right.
And that's always been the tradition. And now we're starting to see that back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. Fire departments are starting to support healthier living and everything from diet to mental health and everything else. So it seems like we're heading in a good direction. What is still the biggest stumbling block? And is it that stigma that you talk about?
Absolutely. It's the stigma. It's the saying, it's the association with mental health. Nobody wants to be that person who's broken, and in reality is we're all human and we're all broken in some way.
Yeah.
I think it's just saying, you know what, like we're a community and it's okay. Like this is normal. We're all not just first responders, just, there's children, there's wives, there's husbands. We all have something going on in our life. Nobody has that perfect life.
Yeah. And coming from that side, you mentioned the family part. Mm-hmm. You don't know the trauma that happens every day. You can assume, but it's not like first responders, whether it's the husband coming home or the wife coming home, because a lot of women in the firefighting service now, they're not coming home and just like laying it all on the table. They try to protect their families. And unfortunately, that means they're swallowing a lot of that. Mm-hmm. What do you guys do when there's obviously he's bothered, but you don't know how to talk to them?
Mm-hmm. So, typically we were, and I don't want to say talk because no one ever taught us how to be a spouse or anything like that for a first responder, but like we would let them decompress, right? They come in, they usually put their things down. They'll either go do some yard work. At least that's what Alex would do. And then he would kind of like integrate with the family. But I don't even know if that's the right thing, Yeah. It's like, what is the right? I think they themselves need to learn what works for them and communicate to their spouses. I wish there was something that was available for spouses, to a class or a course, or, hey, like a group to get together and say, hey, like, this is what's worked in my household. You should try this. Because again, everybody's different. Some people like to talk, some people don't. A lot of first responders don't like to bring it home, and I don't blame them, because whatever they've done, on their shift has been pretty heavy and just emotionally draining. They don't want to bring it home, but they do tend to either disconnect or wind down on the ride home.
Right.
Or when they get home, they really don't engage with their family right away. They kind of just take time for themselves.
Sounds like a great collaboration between First Alarm Foundation and One Brother, One Sister to come up with some training programs for families.
I would love that.
And we would definitely be on board with that, because that's really, really important to feel supported when they get home.
Right.
Even without major trauma. And let's talk about trauma for a moment. Not all trauma is 9/11 trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Not all trauma is big explosions or even death in bodies or whatever it might be. Some of it is just the alarm going off and re-triggering something that happened 6 years ago. Are you learning a lot more about trauma now?
I am. I'm actually, my eyes have opened up on trauma. You know, I lived a very blessed life, so I didn't really experience trauma until the day my husband passed away. And I can tell you that day, vividly, I can remember like the moment they walked in to tell me the news, like everything. I could just picture it clearly in my head. So I know that was a traumatic moment for me. So I can't imagine having seen so much in a first responder's career. They see so much, and that just running through your head on a daily basis.
Wow. It's just, maybe if we all had a better understanding about mental health, that's a good step towards getting rid of the stigma. Is, it's so funny. People walk down the hallway with a cast on their arm and they're not ashamed that they broke their arm, but they're fully ashamed if they're not feeling right, in their head. Tell me about, let's say we've got Bob, who's a firefighter. He's starting to feel off. What would happen if he contacted you? What kind of services could you offer Bob at
First Alarm?
First Alarm.
Yeah, so we've partnered up with a few places, and it just depends on what modality you're looking for. If you want to see a clinician who's culturally competent, we've vetted them. We can connect him with somebody like that. We would pay for their first 8 sessions to start them off. We also are working with another company that does the TMS, which is the transmagnetic stimulation. That's had great outcome with that, EMDR. So we've tried to partner up with many different modalities. So maybe you've tried this and it hasn't worked for you. Well, we'll offer something else. We just want you to find the help that you need.
Now, if they were to contact you and ask for some help, does that stay confidential and that keeps it out of the department?
Yes, it's nothing to do with the department. Everything's confidential. If they want to use the insurance, they can. If they don't have to.
Excellent. I assume that the goal is, let's get you to a place where you can say it in front of people, because at the end of the day, we can help them secretly, if you will. But we want them to be able to step back and say it out loud, don't we? Absolutely.
Yes. I feel like therapy, at least in the generations that are growing up now, the younger generation, it's something that is okay to go to therapy. Back in when I was growing up and older generations, the guys that are retired, you just don't do that. Like, that's not, it's the crazy, right? That word crazy. I'm not crazy. I don't need to go to therapy. And it has nothing to do with that. It's to be able to talk to someone and express what you're feeling. It's conversation. It's just like what we're doing now, having a podcast. It's just opening up and being okay to tell them what's happening and what you're feeling.
That's amazing. Now, you've been at it for a year now, probably coming up on your anniversary, right?
Yes.
How are you doing with First Alarm?
We're doing really good. Surprisingly enough, when I started this, a lot of people were like, are you sure? He just passed away.
Yeah.
And, all I can think about is that, yes, I got to strike while the iron's hot. Now that I have all these people, that are like state representatives and, mayors and stuff like that want to help and they want to see anything. They want to be like, how can I help? I'm going to take you up on it. And I did. And I reached out to them immediately. Things have picked up so much that it just shows me that I'm on the right path and this needs to be done. Like, our first responders need the help.
Now, of course, you accept help from others as well because it is a nonprofit.
Yes.
And let me tell you, when you use the word nonprofit, that's what they mean. There is no profit.
Yes.
We struggle just to keep going. How can people help you out?
Well, you can make donations to First Alarm through our website, First Alarm Foundation. Or on our IG, you can contact us. We have events coming up. So there's always like sponsorship opportunity. We are always trying to come up with events and stuff like that to keep funds for our first responders.
Now, is it firstalarmfoundation.com or .org?
It's .com.
Firstalarmfoundation.com. And I assume you have your events listed on there too, right?
I do, yes.
And the first one coming up, will be the golf tournament?
It's
it's the mental health
yes, the
summit.
South Florida Mental Health Wellness Summit. It's going to be on the 23rd of October. Please join us. There's going to be other wonderful clinicians there, not just for first responders, it's for everyone, all walks of life. And then we also have our golf tournament that we're going to have on December 12th. It's going to be at the Pines Golf Course. We're actually teaming up with Miramar Fire Benevolent. And
Nice.
it's also mental health awareness for first responders, come out and support our heroes on the green. And it's all for a good cause.
That's fantastic. Please, if you're a golfer, go out and play around to help somebody. This is really important. And show up at the Mental Health Summit.
Yes.
That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be there. We'll hang out a bit. It'll be fantastic. So you had mentioned before you work with a lot of different clinicians and stuff, and I want to make something really kind of clear. Is it important to have a clinician that is practiced at working with first responders?
Yes, it's very important, especially with this culture. You need culturally competent clinicians. Either they've been in the military, police officer, firefighter, because they need to feel understood. And that's what I've noticed. And I'm not trying to bash any other clinicians and stuff like that, but they need that when they come to you, because they are already they're not going to go in the beginning, like they need help. So They need to be culturally competent. They need to feel understood. And I think it's very important to have these vetted, culturally competent clinicians. And I hope and pray that, the clinicians that are out there right now and they're working on their degrees and stuff, that they try to look into being a first responder clinician, because we need more of them out there. There isn't very many.
And that involves getting involved in a department, doing ride-alongs, spending time with them.
Right.
Without that training and without being vetted as a first responder clinician, you end up with somebody who gets wrapped up in the story and the event,
Yes.
and less about what it means to that person. Because you want to hear the story. I'm sorry, we're human. We want to hear about the fire, about this, about that. So that's really, really important. Tell me some of the other people. Now, you said EMDR and clinicians and stuff. What other people have you run into that have stepped up to help you?
We've had a lot of local help too from the mayor. We've had state senators and stuff who've actually, contributed to the foundation. Local, just other therapy, places and resources around the community that want to be part of this. But we do tell them, we vet everyone, do you have culturally competent? Can we meet with them? Can we sit down and talk to the clinician and make sure that it's the right, what we're looking for, that right person that we're looking to be able to refer our first responder to.
I got to ask the people who all said, are you sure you want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
What are they saying now?
You know what? They're in awe, because they've told me, I can't believe it's gone this far. We're so proud of you, and it's not about that. I just feel like it was something that needed to be done. And I'm a very faithful-based person, so I feel like God wouldn't open up all these doors if they weren't meant to be open, and I feel like every day somebody else reaches out, and every day another opportunity, or every day we get a donation, and it's this is real, and this is happening, and it's because it needs to happen.
Wow. This may sound strange, but and I understand some of what you went through, because I lost my wife to addiction, and in the work that I do in addiction now to help other people and with mental health, it keeps that bond between me and her. Mm-hmm. And it brings me almost closer to her, even though she's gone, and it might sound strange. Do you understand that feeling I'm talking about?
I absolutely understand. So that's another reason why I feel like I've actually gotten, I can't say closure, because I always still have questions, but I'm getting answers. When I talk to another first responder and they're telling me that they felt suicidal or they thought these thoughts, I understand now what he was feeling. It almost gives me some type of understanding, and it's healing me too at the same time. So I think, yes, I am getting stuff from them too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know he'd be so proud of all the work you're doing. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
I have to ask about your son, because he's a young teen, while this was going on. How does he see this role that he's now playing in a family that is helping others? Does he see this as beneficial as well?
He's a teen, so I feel like
he's a teen, so it doesn't matter.
So he doesn't really, he doesn't. At first, he just kind of just let me do my thing,
Yeah.
and he didn't really understand, but now I know he's understanding, and he's knowing that mental health can happen to anyone. It's not something that you ask for; it just happens sometimes, depending on what crisis hits you, and he's seeing that. I'm 100% confident he knew how much his dad loved him. So my biggest concern in the beginning was like, is he going to question why dad took his life? And it's a very natural question.
And children tend to own those things.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
It's my fault.
It's my fault, or maybe, but I think with the work that I'm doing, he's learning about mental health and how you need to take care of yourself. And if you don't, things can happen. And he is seeing this. He doesn't say much about it though, but he's seeing it and he's embracing it little by little. He hasn't fully said, I want to be part of First Alarm and put me on a podcast. No, none of that. He'd rather not. But he has mentioned to me that he's run into other firefighters from other departments and mentioned, oh, do you happen to know who First Alarm is? And he's texted me and said, Mom, so-and-so knew who you were. And he kind of felt a little proud about that.
That's
so
fantastic.
I'm like, yeah.
That's fantastic. And again, you mentioned your podcast. Tell me about the podcast you do and how people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's First Alarm Family First. And I started this podcast with Jen Herrera. She's also a wife of a first responder and a daughter of a first responder. So, and we actually went to high school together.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So after this all happened, I contacted her and we joined forces and we came up with this podcast to just have a safe space for people to go and tune in and listen to somebody telling their story, listen to resources that we have on, just have that, nobody has to know who you are if you're logging on. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify. We try to have an episode out every week, and it's just information we're throwing at you, stories we're throwing at you for you to know you're not alone. If you want to come on and share your story, please reach out to us through First Alarm Family First or IG. Yeah.
So I assume on your First Alarm Foundation website, you also have the information for the podcast.
I do.
And so you got your events, your podcasts. I have to ask, because you jumped into this so fast, and I think it's amazing. I wish more people would act instead of sitting and just, trying to figure things out on your own. Have you had revelations since you started doing this about not only your past, but about what firefighters and police and everybody else go through? Have you had major revelations that you never would have thought of on your own?
Yeah, I mean, every day. I just feel like this has been such a learning experience because we truly, I feel like, as, civilians, take them for granted. I think we see them in their uniform and we think, there are heroes and they don't fear anything and they can take seeing somebody that's about to die or has died and it's not a big deal to them because they picked this career. No, they can't. So they have to go home and still have those feelings just like me and you would when we see something on the news, but now they're seeing it in real life or they're the ones working on that person. So that has definitely been an eye-opening experience for me, how traumatic the events that they see on a daily basis. And this is their career. So they can't just say like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, how do they provide for their families?
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of the problem. Then we also have the other side where we have family members. Like you said, you saw behavior changes, and this happens for all of us. And it happens not just with PTSD or trauma. It can happen with addictions or any other mental health disorder. You start to see things that just are out of character. Listen, we all have a bad day and we do something we don't know, but when it becomes like a pattern that's out of character, what do you suggest for people to do, for family members to do?
Well, definitely.
It's a tough question. I know.
Yes, it is. It's tough. But I definitely, I'm going to tell you, if I would to go back now, I would have sat down with him and said, given him that space to say like, what's going on? I think I would have been a little more, I would have even maybe done like a couples therapy because he might not want to be the broken one, but we can be broken together and then figure it out as we go, I think. And you're not broken. Again, like I said, we're all broken in some way, shape or form, but I think it's just having somebody with you kind of like be with you and you just not be that person asking for help. I think I would have done that differently, but just have that open line of communication. Know that it's okay. Like, we all have our good and bad days, but make them understand that it's okay to talk about it, And I think educating the families is huge.
I think that's so important that we all understand. I would love to have, now this is my own personal thing, and this is your show, but I'm going to tell you, I would love to see kids in junior high and high school take mental health courses.
Yes.
So that they understand the difference between being sad and being clinically depressed, so that they understand some real basics about mental health. So when they get home and they see mom or dad, they can recognize that instead of just owning it themselves, like we talked. Or if they start feeling something, that's my dream. What would you love to see happen?
I would love to see more education, starting from, even if you're interested in as a cadet, like you said, in the academy, teaching them about how to take care of themselves, not just physically, because we all know that if you diet, you exercise and stuff like that, but mentally, we all need to know that we need that time, whether it be yoga or, a walk or whatever, we need that to disconnect, and we need to learn how to deal with our emotions and feelings. The running away from it, they're going to come back at you. You need to learn how to deal with those feelings.
And I feel we would be remiss if we did not point out that more firefighters lose their life by suicide than in the line of duty. I don't think a lot of people understand that this is a real problem. And for everyone who actually goes to that level of suicide, there's hundreds more that are close to it that don't quite reach there, but they're suffering.
Right.
They're suffering, and it doesn't have to be that way. 5 years from now, what do you see for First Alarm Foundation? What do you see yourself moving into?
Well, I hope that we, are known nationally. I mean, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I hope that there is more, that stigma is broken down more, that there is more open communication about having, needing help or having a mental health crisis is not looked at like that's the end of all, because it's not. That's my hope. My hope is that, we build a community where you feel safe to talk about it, and it's no longer that stigma.
Definitely needed. We definitely need to go there. I can imagine you've had stories where things didn't work out for somebody, and but you've also had successes where you've seen somebody go through and you'll be able to help them and see them come out the other side a better person, or not a better person, but feeling better. Do you take that all personal, or because a lot of people keep a distance? You can't when you do this work.
You can't. No.
You get very personal with this, don't you?
Yes, I do. Because, I think to myself, what if that was Alex? So when they're talking to me, I see him, and I know that those last days, I could just see it in his eyes that he was just desperate, So I try to be as present and help as much as I can. I know I can't solve every problem I can. I know that, and I can't take that on myself, but I at least try to guide them to get help, and, and put them in the right hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it sounds like you're doing such fabulous work. Once again, firstalarmfoundation.com. You can go there. Can people make private donations and everything else there on the site?
Yes. You can go through our PayPal. You can make donations through there. You can always contact us through IG, and I can, we can have a conversation over the phone. I can tell you how to do that too.
Okay. And certainly, again, look for the events. Was there anything else you wanted to add in there?
Just follow us on First Alarm Foundation, First Alarm Family First on our IG. We also have Facebook, and come out to our events, and, let's help break the stigma. We need our heroes. We need our first responders.
And my condolences for the loss of what seems to be a fantastic guy, somebody who served people, and like most first responders, they put others before themselves constantly. It's time for us to step in and help them put themselves first when they need to.
Yes.
And that means so much. First Alarm Foundation, please go check it out. Make sure you attend the events. Hey, show up in October and come and see both of us. We're both going to be there.
Yes.
For the Mental Health Summit. But beyond that, if you have any questions, please reach out. You invite people. I mean, there's no bad questions, right?
Yes, no, absolutely. If you want to come and share your story, please reach out to us. There's no bad questions. There's no bad guests. I think anything and everything helps.
Absolutely. And check out the podcast. I'm looking forward to seeing that myself. And let's all do something to change stigma. And stigma, it only changes with education. It cannot change with ignorance, and it cannot change by ignoring it. It must be met head on with information, with education, and certainly with empathy.
Yes.
That's what we're looking for. So thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank my guest, Carolyn Acosta. Thank you so much, Carolyn. It was so nice meeting you.
Thank you for having me on.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And all of you out there, don't forget to like this show, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and leave those comments. It's so important. For my guest, Carolyn, I'm Scott Jones, right here at Sober Life Studios. Make sure you check out onebrother1sister.com. If you'd like to make a difference in educating our first responders, you can donate right there as well. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.